This episode, hinged shutters versus fixed shutters. Well, we received an email from a longtime listener, Tan, and Tan writes, I bought a house last year and it has shutters. They are totally decorative and do nothing. Remember when there were real shutters? I'm going to replace these this summer. Could you do an episode on replacing for real shutters? I'm wondering about being able to operate them on the second floor. Can they be closed from inside, or do we still need the long poles? Boy, Johnny, that tells us how old we are.
Yeah.
So with that, a show is born. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thank you for listening to the Handyman Show's radio show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled Hinged Shutters versus Fixed Shutters, and to help me explain, I'm here with my ever cheerful co-host, and old buddy Johnny.
Yes, yeah, Larry, let me turn the tables. Shutters. Larry, what have you been doing? You've been making some progress on this big shed, and I hope we talk about that at some point here, but
I need to go take a whole bunch of photos and show you my shed / ADU / building it's turned into. Yeah, it's really come along. I put some temporary benches in there here the other day. I'm getting it organized inside. I finally moved almost all my stuff up in there, I think. The wife keeps finding more stuff. Here, put this in the shed. Put this in the shed. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yep. But anyway, yeah, it's getting there. It's a behemoth. I'm not gonna lie. It's
a whole nother house.
It grew.
Yeah,
it grew.
Yeah, folks. Well, you'll have to see this thing at some point. Larry's been great. He's been pretty creative.
But just lumber, baby. It's just lumber. Just add more.
That's all it is. It's just money.
And more. Just money. It's just money.
And when you got money like Larry, folks,
Johnny, you're not one to talk.
You just keep going. You just keep going. Yeah. So I saw this email a while ago. I guess it was back in January, and been meaning to address this. Because, Tan, I know exactly what you're saying. It sounds like you want to replace your decorative shutters. And if those are the ones I'm thinking about, the flat ones, and we'll define what all this is, in a second. But I get you, because I went through the exact same thing. I didn't replace, but it was the cost almost made me go in another direction until I figured it out. But anyways, we'll talk about that. So, Larry, you've got shutters on your house?
I do not. Well, I did. I made some, but they were decorative ones. They're just wood. I did some stars and stuff. They're cut out and they're just decorative.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't close.
Well, shutters were what for? Protection. When they first. Why are there shutters, right?
It's a great question, and all I can think of is back in the olden days, they had shutters so that arrows wouldn't get through. It's part of the reason.
Arrows, protection, climate control, privacy, all that kind of stuff. But as time goes on, we went from functional shutters, and we went from bad, cheap windows to very expensive, well done windows, all the double panes and so on and so forth. But so I know that my shutters had rotted away, and I was left with, what am I going to do? So what we're talking,
I said, open the wallet, Johnny. Open the wallet.
Yeah, Johnny had to open the wallet. And I'll tell you. So, folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, there's two kind of distinct types in itself of the way shutters are installed. One is on hinges, so that they can either be functional or they look functional.
Correct.
The other type is just attached flat next to the window, onto the wall, adjacent to the window. I like the look of traditional looking shutters because of the way that it's architectural and the way the light hits it, and it casts a shadow, and it makes a kind of a depth thing around windows a little different. So I think it's more aesthetic than just the flat ones. So Tan, if you're kind of in that, in that that mode the way I was. My house had functional shutters, if you will. I never used them, but when you're replacing them, man, look out. Because you won't find real shutters much anymore as a matter of fact, kind of in a big box store. Now they'll carry the plastic ones that you just put against the wall.
The flat ones.
Yeah, the flat ones. And those are made of either vinyl or PVC.
Yep.
And those come, in a variety of ways. There's different types of shutters. There's louvered, there's panel shutters. There's, the batten shutters.
Yep.
I will tell you that, when I was going through this and I had my house painted, those shutters, when they were all falling down, and when I started to look for them, they were really expensive.
Yeah. Yep.
They were probably
like anything. It's like anything.
So I've got 19 shutters on the front of my house, and they come in pairs, and the pair of them were, the cheap ones, were like $300 a pair.
Ouch. Times 19. Ouch.
Times 8.
Oh, 8 times 8.
But,
yeah,
somewhere
even
on
still.
There. Yeah. It was like, holy shit. What am I going to, how am I going to get myself? Because I didn't want to put the flat, shutters on. So I've looked around, and this is where where the art is in this thing. If you look around long enough, you'll find that there's cheaper shutters out there. Yep. And you just have to paint them up real good, prime them and paint them. And then, now I've had these up. I got them for I think it was about 140 a pair. So over the 9 windows I got. So it's like, that was quite a bit. Now I didn't have to buy new hardware. So when you look at Tan, if you're going to move from a flat panel to an actual working or a replica of a working shutter, you're going to have to buy the hardware for it. That's the supports, the L supports for the sides, the hinges, and those hinges are kind of those weird hinges. It's like a lift off, and you just put them back on the like a gate hinge, and then
Pinion
you have to
and guntle or wait, is that right? Pintle is pintle and gudgeon.
That's it. Gudgeon. Yeah. And then you have to buy the dogs, the shutter dogs, which is the tie downs.
Right.
So, I was just pricing those the other day, getting kind of ready for the show here. And those things are, anywhere from, $45 to $100 for a pair, hardware to mount a pair of those things.
Ouch. That's a lot.
So now when you start adding up, at the low end for me, now I already had all the hardware from the old ones. So if you're starting off with, as Tan is saying here, if you're going to start off and you're going to get rid of just the decorative ones, you're going to have to buy the whole shooting match on that. So you're probably, looking at, for me, it was close to $3,000 before I was getting off the ground here, to do that. And that was cheap. That now you can go out and buy PVC shutters that are made to look like wood shutters that are functional.
$29.
And those are about $500.
No, they're not that much.
Oh yeah, they are.
Oh, that work.
That work. That work. Okay. So now, that's the dilemma, folks. If you're gonna do shutters, real working shutters are gonna be expensive.
Yes,
they're gonna be expensive. And now, if you're really good at things,
takes us out of it.
Could squeeze some juice out of this thing. And I went and I bought some shutters. I got some shutters that my neighbor wanted me to install. But his house was just like mine, where they were working hinges, with the working shutters. But he bought flat plastic ones. So I mounted in some wood behind the channel in the back that was hollowed out, because they're just hollow in the back because they're mounting straight to either brick or your siding or whatever. And, I made it work for those cheap flat shutters, but you're going to spend a lot of money. Now, if you don't have that many shutters, then of course, it's going to vary, right?
All about the number of windows.
It's all about the number of windows, man. I am telling you. So, I mean, if you're in that mode to replace those things, man, just look around. They're all over the place. And I will say that these new shutters, they come, you can get vinyl shutters, PVC shutters, guys that, make them out of cedar. And I'll tell you, if I had to do it again, I've got louvered shutters. And if I had to do it again, I think I'm not going to make my own louvered shutters. Those things are a pain in the ass, man. Because
don't even put them up. Painting them is a pain in the ass.
Oh my God. Well, and some of mine had separated, and you try to put those things all back together again. You're going to have a fun time. So if you don't do that all the time, that's a lot of fun. But I'd make batten shutters, because that's only three or four boards vertical and two, one on the top and one on the bottom across horizontally. Right. And then you built it, make it out of pressure treated wood,
Yep.
And you're done. So, Tan, I know you're the handyman out there, so you be able to do that. I mean, that's a thought. And then you're left with just going out and buying the hardware to mount it. Cause that the hardware's going to mount, those hinges are going to mount in the, on the casing of the window. So all you got to do is screw them in. So it's not a big deal. But
self-drilling, self-tapping.
Yeah.
Self-drilling self-centering drill. That's what, what you need.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, I'll tell you from the, if you want them to be functional on the second floor, I can open up the window and reach out and work the shutter dogs and move them.
Johnny, you don't want to be like a Russian, like a Russian guy that's just, been on the bad side of Putin, leaning out the window,
yeah, 13th right.
floor,
yeah.
something like that.
I always wonder who's behind me, Yeah, he just fell out by himself.
He just fell out. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell that happened.
He was opening the shutters. That's what he told.
Or you can just use like you said, use the old time poles, to work the dogs and slide the, work the shutters. I don't have a need to close my shutters,
right? But
they certainly do look better than the flat ones, in my opinion. They do. So, I don't know, Tan, if that kind of helps you or not. It's I think that what you're going to be faced with is a bit of money. I don't know how many shutters. You didn't mention how many that you want to replace. So, but I kind of give you the those hinges are going to be $45 to up to $100, all the hardware for each set, and then the shutters, if you don't make them yourself, are going to be probably $100.
You have to pay somebody to install them or do it yourself.
Tan's going to do that.
Tan's going to do it.
But the shutters are going to be $150 to $500 a pair. So depending upon the size of your window. So just kind of put that in the back pocket, man, when you're doing this job. It just seems like I'll tell you, I didn't know what I was going to do for a while there, because it was really getting expensive.
Johnny, you were indecisive. I can't believe it.
Oh man. It was the point where I had to sit down for a long time. I'm scratching my chin. I'm like, man, what the hell am I going to do? Because I need all new shutters, and as soon as you go, as soon as you go out and you start to look at this, and say, hey man, you got shutters? You go to some of these places. I need all new shutters. How many do you need? And the first thing is they're like, I'm like, what? They're like, woo, man, that's a lot of money.
Pull up your leg and say, yeah, I do have good looking legs.
My God. Anyways, you guys get the idea, but good luck with that. Let us know if this helps. If this this has been my experience with the shutters.
Yeah, my experience with shutters boils down. I had shutters on one house. They needed to be painted. I painted two all day with a brush and went out and bought a sprayer. And that was,
and
that was my experience with shutters.
And so that is another great tip, because it's things like that. These things can be a real pain in the butt to paint. You know, these the louvered things. It's like painting wicker.
It's yes. Very much so. Literally, that's a true story. I had 24 shutters to paint, right, on a house that was built around 1900, and actually 1890. Anyway, be that as it may, I took the shutters all down, no problem. That was all easy. The hardware was all good, and the shutters were in pretty decent shape. You know, they just needed paint. So I'm like, I was cheap and I was young. I was probably in my early or late 20s, you know, and I'm like, I'll just paint them with a brush. Well, I did it was awful. It was a terrible job. Just the first, and it took me all day to do two. I said, screw that. And I ran down to a place that is no longer in business called Wix. It's a big box store. It's like Home Depot or Lowe's. And I bought a Wagner power painter, and I painted all the rest of the shutters, all of them. Let me rephrase that. I painted all the shutters, because I had to repaint the ones I had already painted. I painted all the shutters in 4 hours. I was like, I will never be without a paint sprayer again. Never. Yeah. And I never have.
Yeah. And that kind of rolls into a whole nother topic, but you know, that is true. That is true. And when you take on jobs like that, you know, you got to be, you know, it's the same thing that we always, you know, we talk about doing any project, you know, think it through.
Think it through.
And you know,
I didn't think that one through.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking this whole thing through, you know. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun project. It's gonna cost me a fortune. So there you have it.
So Johnny, the question of the day. Do they have shutters on spaceships? That's the question of the day.
No. Not really. Not really. They got other things, Larry, I think. Larry. Always a shudder to think, Larry. So
I shudder to think. Oh, bada bing, bada boom. Tip your wait step appropriately. Try the veal. I hear it's excellent.
Drive safely, folks.
We are. That's right. Drive safely.
The life you save could
All right,
be mine.
folks, with that signifies it's the end of the show. Please do us a couple of favors. One is please like or subscribe to this show so that we can tell other people that you want to go. If you have any questions, much like Tan did, send us an email, questions at handymanprosradioshow.com, and we will possibly put your show on the air. We definitely will answer your questions for sure. So if you do that, or leave us a mention in the YouTube in the YouTube comments too. Johnny reads all that stuff, so I'm blaming him if we don't get to your message on that one. But anyway, with that, folks, Johnny, take us home.
Yeah, folks, have a great week. We'll see you next time on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.